Welcome to the Leadership Reckoning Room, the space where leaders are brave enough to look in the mirror and do the real work. I'm Steph, and today we're doing something a little bit different. We're reigniting the lantern with Simon Curran, the Chief Development and Culture Officer at ROKT. We're taking the conversation with Simon one layer deeper into the real mechanics of the org design shift in the era of AI. What's working, what's not quite working, lessons learned, and his honest take on the fewer managers trend that we've been reading about and what it truly demands of the leaders who remain. So take a breath, lay down the armor you've gathered since the last time we talked, and re-enter the reckoning with us. Simon, I'm so thankful for your additional time on this. Really important topic. I felt regret when we spoke last that I didn't go deeper on this with you because it's a topic that a lot of companies are currently struggling with. I'm reading a lot of articles about it. How do you build your organization, rebuild your organization in the era of AI as you incorporate and build AI into the framework of how you're designing your org? And so I know you've done it at ROKT. You're testing things out. Things seem to be working. And I just want to hear from you and have everybody listening learn from your wisdom, because this conversation is going to help so many in sharing your approach and your thoughts on your org design at ROKT now and then also in the future. So my first question right out of the gate is just, you've restructured your orgs in ways that many companies only are theorizing about. What led you to this new type of approach, and what was the core problem you were trying to solve when you began redesigning your organization for an AI-enabled future?
Wow. Kia ora, Steph. Good to see you again. It's awesome to be back on this topic because this is, we're spending a decent amount of our time doing exactly what we're doing now, which is talking. Sometimes sharing what we've done, sometimes picking the brains of what other people have done. But like you, I agree that the more we can exchange ideas, swap stories, co-participate in experiments, the faster we'll get through this. And our just as quick context, our journey into this accelerated race began in February of last year. Yeah, we had a small group of us, about 4 of us, working on how do we reimagine the organization in an AI era. Mid-February, we called the entire organizations together and declared what went on to become a movement rather than a mandate to not just click in or bolt in AI, but completely reimagine how it works. And our founder said 2 things. Number one, he said, I believe there's going to be an outsized opportunity for a very small number of organizations. So we're going to move very fast to position ourselves to be one of them. But that secondly, because we are an AI-based business, working in New York City, we can take more risks, do more things than many of our clients. So we're going to take those risks so we can turn around and help our clients go through it. And that's what we're now doing. We're workshopping with 15, 18 of our clients around the world, sharing our playbook, again, swapping stories and all these things. So to answer your question, I think really importantly, what we didn't do is reset the organization because of AI. What we did is redesign our organization to chase 5 times our speed or velocity. And AI became the enabling tool to be able to do that. And by that, what I mean is we worked out very quickly that we were trying to assess what is going to be the biggest friction on our movement at 5 times our speed. And anything that was friction, we said we're going to treat there are no sacred cows. So anything that slows us up to get in 5 times our speed, we will try and reblock, reimagine, remove. That could be process, that could be belief systems, that could be outdated assumptions. And in some instances, it could be people, depending on their mindset. And we worked out that it wasn't going to be tool sets. That wasn't going to be the problem because we can get access to tools. And it wasn't going to be skill set because we could train that back in and the tools themselves could train that. So the single most important thing we were going after is mindset. That started with deploying tools. That started with training people on how to use them. That was playfully based at first, so people felt safe with their experimentation. But very quickly, what we worked out after about 4 months, that the largest friction point now that people are familiar with tools and know how to use them was the structure of an organization and a set of assumptions on how organizations are built that was circa 20, 30, 40 years old. So when you say to someone, move at 5 times your speed, they can do a certain amount before they then have to come back to the fundamental decisions on how will we move friction points in our structures, layers, spans, processes, ways of working, and delegated decision making. So I give you that as context before we go any further, and you can point me now where specifically you'd like to go on that: layers, spans, controls, depending on what's most.
I think great. Thank you for that very much, because I think what that does is that opens the conversation to more than just what I feel like I'm reading about and hearing about. Is we have to organize and reorganize because of AI. But the reality is exactly what you said. There are other factors that go into needing to continue to move quickly as a company while you're embracing AI tool sets and things like that can lift some of the monotony or some of the repetitive work off of people's plates. The focus that I'm interested in, because of course, my passion is leadership and manager excellence. And I've always said, and I still believe, I will go down fighting saying that you will still need that human element as far as leadership goes, right? You still need to be able to have all of those human skills that are the most critical things that AI can't replace, as far as caring about the humans that you work with, that you are lucky enough to lead, that your company needs to be able to land the hard goals quickly. Yes. And so I'm interested in like the org design, how you actually thought about it, because the reality of what I'm reading, and to some extremes, which I make me crazy, is just the whole role of the fewer manager trend. Like I read an article, I think it was in Inc. recently, where a CEO said, well, the reality is we could just get rid of all managers and they can all just report to me, all 6,000 of them. That's because, what else are they going to do? AI is going to take everything. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. You wouldn't have a company, I don't think, because you need humans to be able to grow and nurture those who are adopting AI and landing your hard goals. So kind of a twofold question. How did you think about it from an org design perspective? And two, are you leaning into the fewer manager trend? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think again, there's a difference between what was inputs and outcomes. So we didn't set out to reimagine the organization because of AI. We went out to reimagine the organization to travel at 5 times our speed. We could do it because we had these new tools, which are AI based. We didn't set off to reduce the number of managers, or what we call people leaders, still not our intention. But in some instances, we've been able to do that simply because, in part, the tooling, but more specifically, the expectations, the freedom, and some of the layer collapsing that we've done within the organization. So it was never a metric on taking people out, it was never a metric on removing managers. But then it comes back to a more first principle question, which is, what is the role of a manager? And in our mind, we spent quite a bit of time making the demarcation between what's the distinction between a manager and a leader. Because in some instances, that's hierarchical based.
Right.
And if you thought your role was to carry a title and therefore to spend time managing people, but not actually be on the tools, we have less of them now. Frankly, I don't think we've got any of them now. If your role was to lead, i.e. to have people following you, to lead by example, to lead by how you role model, we've got a lot more of them. And some, frankly, are now ICs, but they're leading by example in ways that we never thought was possible. So that helped us go through, again, redefining what are our expectations, and in so doing, destroyed many of the assumptions that career shapes had been based on for some time. We destroyed the myth that to be a leader, you were a 1-to-5 ratio. That was built in an era when we weren't traveling anywhere near the speed. Now our spans of control are, in some instances 20, in some instances 30, it will be as high as 40, one leader to 40 people. How is that possible? Well, it's only possible if you can reset expectations on what it means to lead, and then provide them with new tooling and create new empowerment that every person in that reporting structure feels like they turn up at work knowing exactly what success looks like and their role to get there. We redefined the expectations on an IC. I mean, one of the things I'm most excited about, this looks like a renaissance for ICs. Because previously, the way to get promoted and up to senior leaders levels was to lead large groups of people. Now you can lead through impact and have a number of different tools, agents working into you and create outsized opportunities. So that's the process that we went through. We collapsed layers, increased spans, reset expectations. In so doing, one of the other assumptions that we challenged was the rites of passage that said junior people should stay junior. And the more experience you get, the more responsibility you get. We said, what would happen if you flipped that? What would happen if you so we go level 1 through 8. What if we said to a level 2, you now report to the founder, and you're going to work side by side with that founder under what will feel like disproportionate pressure, but we think you can do remarkable things. And we're not sure how you're going to do it, but what we can be sure of is we believe in you. Show us what's possible. And they completely blew our lights out.
Yeah.
And in so doing, that one assumption of the rites of passage, or the second assumption of a 1-to-5 ratio, or a third assumption that said you had to be a people leader to be able to lead, by breaking those 3 paradigms, that's where we got some of our most substantial acceleration.
That resonates a lot as far as what I've been thinking about. In particular, the very fundamental base of what you started with, of the definition of the manager, the role of the manager, which I've done work at Microsoft doing in ServiceNow, but then also the definition between a manager and a leader. And what's difficult is sometimes you can interchange those and sometimes you can't. Instead, I'm really trying to use the word people leader more. So if you have people reporting directly to you, whatever the span of control is, those are the skills and capabilities that you really want to build, because it's the human-centered, the self-awareness, the leading with integrity and building trusted environments and things like that, I feel like that's not going to go away if you're leading people. And in my mind, it's like AI can help manage the work, but a leader helps lead the people. So I've tried to separate it a little bit that way. And as you think about how you've been redefining the manager role specifically, so those are large spans of control. I think the most I've ever led, the largest individual team I've ever led was 15 people reporting to me. So what capabilities matter most now for those that are still leading teams or groups of people? And what has your approach, has it been welcomed? How are you setting those leaders up for success if they have, say, 40 direct reports, from using an old school term?
Yeah, and I love your earlier framing on the distinction between what it means to lead. And if I take a step back from attributes and skills, part of the consequence of moving as fast as we're all moving, and part of the consequence of the uncertainty we're living in, and part of the consequence of media reporting about things like we don't need leaders and don't write code. And one of the meta issues that we're all grappling with at the moment is you can see big groups of people going through somewhat of an identity wobble. Actually, what does this mean now for me professionally? I've built my career very successfully, either leading or writing code, and it's fascinating to see that there are a group of people flourishing and another group of people with exactly the same circumstances and largely the same sort of pedigree struggling. So we're spending a disproportionate amount of time now trying to work out why for some group of people, why for some is this an identity advantage and others an identity crisis. And let's go through the lens of a leader. If the story that someone had in their mind was, you are a leader if you have the most answers. You're the leader if you talk the most in meetings. You're the leader if you spend your time delegating and reviewing decisions. The reality is this is going to be a very difficult era to lead if that's the prevailing commentary in your mind. If the key questions you ask yourself most often as a leader is, how do I ask more questions? How do I have the vulnerability of saying, I really don't know, but I think we can work it out? And perhaps most profoundly, if you are a leader who stops thinking that their role is to lead people and instead is to lead by example, and you are working side by side, not up and down, well, that's the new persona we think of leadership.
Yeah.
And that has to be role modeled by the most senior people in the organization. This is not an era, I don't think, where you can delegate. You have to do. Yeah. And I'll give you a very primal example, and I use that word deliberately because it comes with blast radius. Our chief executive founder, Bruce Buchanan, has come off the seat almost of being the chief executive. And now within our engineering teams, we have 4 must-win priorities, and he's running one of the 4 must-win priorities. He's changed floors. He works now with levels 2, 3, 4s, 5s, and 6s. He is in the code base, running daily stand-ups, participating in meetings like a peer, not as a boss. And for someone to go from chairing the company to then chairing and participating in a meeting, now that's not right for everyone to work like that, nor is it right for everyone to want to work that close to a founder at that speed and velocity. But the change is phenomenal. And that's a very different mindset. That's got nothing to do with the tool of AI.
Yeah.
That is the ability. We learned this beautiful expression from IDEO some years ago that we're all very familiar with the expression déjà vu. Like, I think I've seen that somewhere before. They flipped the language from déjà vu to vujade, which is to see something or someone like you've never seen them before. And that day one mentality, if a founder can do it, level 5 can do it.
Absolutely.
And 4, 3, 2, 8, whatever it might be. That's a very liberating mindset to enter this new era. And we think, back to your original question, some of the attributes, and we're doing a lot of work now with a chap called Rich Stefani, wrote a book called The Attributes. We think the attributes that are going to be most powerful will be things like curiosity.
Yes.
There'll be things like open-mindedness. There'll be a degree of compartmentalization. How do I park that to focus on that? And then there'll be some of the attributes like grit, which is the ability to go again, or resilience. And how do I spend long times in ambiguity without my system freaking out on me? It's going to be the ability to surge at projects and then finding and role modeling ways to restore from projects, micro breaks, timeout, loud leaving. So that's a complicated suite, but it might actually not be that complicated.
Yeah.
Because if you took the day zero mentality and you walked in like you didn't know it and had the courage to perform like that, incredible things are possible.
Yeah. The way you described it, like essentially removing the hierarchy or the fear-based leadership that comes along with moving up the ladder. Like you said, having, some of the C-suite come down and do some of the work and work alongside. I happen to love that because I feel like that's when you really get to know your company and you get to know the people that you're working with and partnering with, and you can lead by example also from a leader perspective of what it's like to lead. And I've always said that, it's funny, whenever anybody on my team has ever described me or introduced me as their boss, I'm like, I'm not your boss. Like, I'm not. I'm right here with you. I might have some different accountabilities that I have to reach, but I'm right here with you in everything else, making sure that we are working as one and as a team. And I think I'm interested in how that has affected your culture. And you're right. Like, if you go into a company and you don't know any different, you don't know what the old school hierarchy may have felt like. But I'm interested. You probably have employees who know what that old school hierarchy felt like. And so having somebody from the C-suite come and be in the weeds, are they the ones struggling the most than the ones that have come in new and haven't lived this kind of culture before? And how is it affecting your culture overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a whole lot of symptoms of growing pains of moving very fast.
Yeah.
One symptom is saying, I'm not used to working with that person because they work like this or they have that experience and I don't. Like, that's a symptom. But the underlying cause, the difference between the best and the rest, is more the story that they're telling themselves in their head. Stanford Media Labs did a project recently with Better Up, and their view were there were 2 key characteristics to determine whether someone is a pilot in this era or a passenger. And those 2 characteristics for them were agency and optimism. And that's got nothing to do largely with what other people are like. Yes, you can be in an environment that feels tough. The ability to be optimistic in that environment, then that's an incredible strength. You can feel like you're being micromanaged, but if you can still find ways to have discussions to give you back agency and believe you have agency every day you arrive, they're transformative. Mm-hmm. So what's going on with the culture? We can see it bifurcating in certain parts. Again, a group of people flourishing, a group of people that have agency. and then a group of people trying to work it out. Like, is this a period of time? Is this forever? Am I capable or not? And I don't say that with any criticism because that's normal. And our role is to make sure that we do a very good job connecting rooms up, making people feel seen and heard. And we do that with gratitude rounds or recent wins. And we've got to do a really good job of providing clarity, setting context. Why are we moving at the speed we are? And what's the consequence if we don't? But what's the opportunity if we do? We're going to do a really good job of managing two polarizing emotions of fear and excitement. Both are needed in this era to move at the speed we want to and reimagine what we might. So that's on capital L leadership. But it's also on little L leadership, because this is peer-based, regardless of levels. This is looking out for people in corridors. Because like we talked last time, one of the profound differences between this cultural transformation and most of the others in the past is I feel like I'm doing this now on my own. As opposed to in the past, we've had a common enemy like COVID. Now it's a very different type of sensation. And one of the things we've done in working with a lot larger scale organization than ours, when we're trying to talk about transferable learnings, the most important transferable learning we can find after 14 months into this, is if the most senior leaders are delegating or sponsoring this, it's going to be very difficult. If they're doing it and leading by example, it becomes contagious.
Yep.
And so when working with one of our most senior leaders, had a game that any time anyone sent him a report that wasn't AI enabled, he would take it, he would do the first pass of transforming that back into something that was more of an AI era. He would give it back to them and say, that's the standard I think that you can hit. I believe you can. I look forward to seeing it tomorrow. Which just wonderfully put people on notice of we should all lift our standards here, not through judgment, but through participation.
Yeah. And like you said, without judgment or fear, because a lot of times people might go, uh-oh, I did it wrong, because he holds this title. I need to make sure I look good in front of him. He just sent this back to me. And instead of having a culture of learning, like constantly learning from each other, regardless of title, a lot of people bring their old baggage of working in environments of hierarchy and fear, so that if they got something like that, they wouldn't know how to maybe react, or they might take it personally, or, oh God, this is now going to affect my brand with this C-suite leader, or my rewards at the end of the year. But I love that, because it really does help at the same time as protecting the culture. It helps create a culture of learning and growth together. And there's nothing that I have ever done or tried to implement or create that it won't succeed unless you have that, not just buy-in, but like you said, really active participation of modeling the way from top leadership. Nothing works if you don't have that. So kudos to your C-suite for.
And Steph, let me, one of the things I'm conscious of, I'm sharing some tactics. So let me just take a small step back just to provide, again, a container for which those tactics live in.
Thank you.
And we touched on some of this in our last conversation, but to fly over this for us, because we wanted to move at 5 times our speed, and our people were already tired before we began this journey, we were very clear it had to feel like it was a movement from the people rather than a mandate toward the people. So we study the anatomy of movements. We work out that movements have 3 distinct beats. How do you incite a movement? How do you ignite a movement? And then how do you explode a movement? Because we worked out that this was a very different type of cultural transformation, it had to feel like we were all participating in this together playfully. So when we did our training, we worked out very quickly, bringing consultants in to train us on how to use these tools would not work. That would feel like it was top down. So we found subject matter experts, simply people that were a day further more advanced in their experimentation. That's what we mean by an expert. And we would say to those people in GTM, why don't you show other people in GTM how you're deploying it? And in finance, how would you show us? And what naturally happened is a group of enthusiasts bubbled up because they were the ones leading the lunch and learns. And we said, what if we grabbed that group of people and created almost a center of excellence, like a flow to work type resource? What would that look like? Fast forward many months, one of the things that was the greatest transformation for us on this journey within the support function of our business. We call them accelerators, the support function that's G&A, so legal, people, finance, is we created a G&A enablement AI leadership team. Started with 1-2 people. It's now no more than 7. But these are enthusiasts. They happen not to be engineers. They're just people that dived into this quickly, really got their head around it. So they're dangerously equipped on how to reimagine anything, but they have intelligent naivety. Like they don't know the finance function. That's their naivety, but they are intelligent on how to use tools. So they within G&A then got distributed across. So they could go to finance and say, why don't we help you reimagine payroll? And then they would start talking about ledgers you watch the G&A moment. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't need to know what you're talking about. Because what if we had the gift of a day zero, deja vu, vuja day mentality of reimagining it? Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, we're $1 billion in revenue and we have one person in accounts receivable. Same approach to reimagining the way that TA works. What if we could half the amount of time it takes you to find, hire, ramp someone? That's impossible until it's not.
Right.
What if we could deploy someone into a legal department, spend how much time is on redlining docs and say there's got to be a different way? What if we could go to the board and say, hey, Diligent looks like a pretty ineffective tool. What if we could create agentic workflows for our board and radically reduce the amount of time our executives spend in writing board papers? Would that be helpful? That'd be amazing. The board is saying that'd be amazing. So they become like, our analogy is like walking into an Apple store and being greeted by someone in a blue t-shirt who clearly loves what they do. That's what the G&A enablement team enabled us to do.
Wow.
With 5 or 6, 7 people. Completely redefined it in the period of months. We're about to do something we're calling L&D labs. What if you could completely reimagine the way that L&D works in 7 months with agentic workflows, intelligent naivety, and small pizza box type teams? What would that look like? That's that deployment, that playful, enthusiastic deployment. That's what keeps the energy up when people are frankly exhausted at times on how fast they're moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Just 2 questions for you. One is kind of in the lens of what you were just describing. And I wonder if we can just go in the weeds for a second about old leadership, how it is today, managing teams, and then going to a span of 1 leader to 40 direct reports. I know anybody hearing this that's a leader would go, well, holy crap, how do I do 40 one-on-ones? How do I do 40 rewards conversations or performance reviews or connects or whatever you want to call that?
Yes.
Are you thinking of the whole, one, tool set is huge in those things, because a lot of people spend a lot of time writing and justifying and all of that, rewards and promos and all of those things. Have you experienced in this transition, when you have a bigger span of control, tool sets that have helped lift that kind of thing off of a leader's plate so that they can continue to grow the careers of those that are reporting to them?
Short answer, yes, we have. But let's start with the mindset. First mindset is to be able to pivot between player, coach, and then leader. When you're leading a team that big, you spend more of your time as the player coach, side by side, not up and down.
Right.
And when someone gets that, what comes as a consequence is we don't do 40 one-on-ones. They don't happen. We do 1 to fuse.
Okay.
Because if Steph is my player coach, it might be helpful for Peter, Paul, and Mary to listen to the feedback she's given me. Unless there's a particular private discussion we need, which is by exception, it became a one-on-one.
Got it.
So the mindset change from player, coach, and leader, dismantling one-on-ones to 1 to fuse, unless by exception. Then we approach the tooling set, which we have a digital coach in everyone's pocket that enables that we record meetings. We can go back and refer. We can ask for feedback on how we're doing. We have reimagined our calibration process. It's a 3-box tick that now happens 6 weekly, not 6 monthly. We have provided leadership dashboards where a leader can dive in and watch and see and observe promotional velocity, number of leader changes, engagement scores, peer reviews, self-reflections, real time. Peer reviews, and when you pull back from one-on-one, i.e. that amount of information, you require more peer-to-peer feedback. We created language which was even better if. and an expectation that as peers, you will walk into a meeting and I'll ask you to give me 2 even better ifs. We get thousands of them exchanged now. As a consequence, we've got more data than we ever have, and we do less one-on-ones. That helps drive performance conversations.
Yeah.
But back to the real point, this moves from my responsibility is to be the CEO of my own career. And I'm going to work side by side with a player coach. And my peers are going to give me real-time feedback like an athlete might on a court, rather than the hierarchical way it used to cascade down.
Wow. That is what every company needs to hear right now. Like that, those are the things that they're struggling with. How it won't work because of this, or it might not work because of that. And you're laying out an ideal framework that people can leverage, orgs can leverage, companies can leverage, and leaders who are leading kind of the way they are now up to today can think about it a little bit differently. I love your approach. My very last question is just for leaders listening who are staring down all of these same questions. What's the one thing you'd tell them to do first?
The thing that I would do first, and I would do it now, is get back into the ring.
Yeah.
What I mean is the pensiveness of what happens if and what might that mean for me. And the problem is the longer we talk about that, the more we start believing that and creating patterns in our mind. These tools are so easy to use. The tool set's not difficult. The skill set's not difficult. What they're going to have to work on is the mindset.
Yeah.
That comes from the confidence of doing things over and over.
Yeah.
And so the moment they start seeing how easy these things are to deploy and learn, and they create a contagious culture where people want to sit next to them and watch it, then by that measure, that's the greatest strength that we have to author what comes next, not just a report on it. Yeah. That'd be my guide.
It's brilliant. Brilliant. I can't thank you enough, Simon, for this extended conversation. Again, this is what's on my mind as I talk about manager and leadership excellence with the clients I work with. It's what's on every leader's mind as they're trying to win the race of AI, at the same time keep employees, keep an organization that will help them establish and protect a culture that people want to work at, and help side by side land the business goals that they're set up to land. So I can't thank you enough for your time, for your wisdom, and for everybody listening. This is a profound episode that I'm so thankful to Simon for. And in the meantime, keep lighting the path for yourself and keep lighting the lantern for those around you. We're in this together and we're going to figure it out. Thank you so much, Simon.
Kia ora. Thanks, Steph.